Hi, and welcome to Retro Modern Moto, where we talk about classically styled motorcycles that have modern reliability, and we have a small obsession with them. This is the Royal Enfield Bear 650 that I'm getting an opportunity to ride today. Two things I'd like to tell you about this. One is I just had the opportunity to review the Gorilla 450, which was just introduced in the United States August 21st. So the timeliness of it was perfect. So I had a chance to ride that last week. But I will also tell you that what I was really anxious to ride is this Bear 650. So my background with them is I have two INT650s, one of which is attached to a sidecar, but I love them. They're a smooth, easy to ride motorcycle, air-cooled, simple. I think they bring me back to the days of when I was riding a CB750 and a CB500 way back when. Again, that simplicity, air-cooled, no cumbersome or in-your-face electronics, just motorcycle riding at its best. But I'm very, very interested in this Bear, and the secret is I might want to buy this bike. So I'll be going through this video, the gist of which is how does this bike compare to the INT650, both in technical specifications and also in terms of the ride. And then I'm going to try to figure out whether I can find room in the garage, even if it's at the expense of moving on from the Baker's Express INT650 that I have and that I really like. So that's the gist of this video. I'm hoping I get to do a couple more because there are many aspects to this bike that are very interesting to a rider like me. One is I'm curious to see how it is off-road. In Minneapolis, there are not very many opportunities to go off-road, even on a dirt road. So I won't be able to shed much insight into that. I will provide some thoughts based on the specifications and what I can see on the bike itself in terms of what those capabilities might be like. And then the other thing that I'm intrigued by with this bike that I'd also consider to make a different video about is, could this bike be the new modern equivalent of what people are looking for in their ADV bikes, where it's 90% highway and or roads, to get to different places touring, but having that 10% capability if you need it to go off the beaten path, not on too much challenging terrain, but to go off the beaten path to just see some different things that you might not be able to see otherwise. And I'm kind of thinking this might be that type of bike. I'm going to evaluate some luggage options and different things there, but that'll be the subject for a different day. So for today, the Bear 650, let's talk about how it compares to the INT650, and then I welcome your comments. I'd love to have you tell me whether you think I'm making the right move by making that change if I do, or if maybe I shouldn't and why I shouldn't. Either way, I'd love to see your comments. And again, Retro Modern Moto, if you like this type of content and this bike, please consider subscribing and checking in to see what we're doing there. Thank you. And here are the two side by side, the Bear and the INT650, as it's called in the United States. Interceptor everywhere else, but a very sharp bike. That's also one of the more blacked out versions versus my highly chromed one, but also a very cool look. I think both bikes sound great in stock form. The Bear has a little bit more growl to it and might be just a little bit louder, but I think both of them sound really good. Let's talk about some of the specs on the Bear 650. The Bear sits a little bit taller than the INT650, and that's by design. They've certainly gone after more of the scrambler look with this bike, which means that you have a little bit higher seat height. This will be a 32.7-inch seat height versus the 31.7 on the Interceptor. And the reason that is because of the increase in suspension travel. So in the front, you've got about an extra 0.8 of an inch. In the rear, you've got a full inch, and that is what gives that bike a little bit more upright feel. The ground clearance is pretty similar. It's about a 0.4 of a difference between the Bear and the INT650, and otherwise very similar in a lot of ways. The engine is essentially the same, 650 that puts out 47 horsepower. The Bear puts out about an extra 3 or 4 Newton meters of torque. So you get a little bit more torque down in the lower end of the rev range. I don't know that it's going to be noticeable, but we'll find out. But there is a little bit more. And I think it's largely because of the mapping distinction and going from 2 exhausts to 1. And there is just a slight weight savings as well on the Bear from losing that second exhaust. They did put some of that weight back into beefing up the frame for the different type of elements that the Bear would be encountering. But it does come out right about the same weight, a little bit lighter than the INT650. The Bear has the new TFT 4.5 inch, I believe it is, display that you can run your maps through and or music, etc., which is a nice improvement. I, as a dyed-in-the-wool retro modern classic guy, I don't have any problem with the 2 clocks that are on the INT650. But this brings it up into the modern age just a little bit and offset in kind of a dapper way. The switchgear is very nice. It's not metal, I believe that's plastic, but it's hard to tell. But in any event, it looks really nice with the bike. It does have the barrel grips, which I really like. I've had that on bikes in the past and really like it, which is a little bit different than the other Royal Enfield offerings. The seat is shaped different than the INT650, and they curved it down a little bit in front to help make up for some of that height that's added to the bike through the suspension. The Bear does also come with all LED lighting, which is different than my INT. I think they've gone to the headlight and the taillight being LED, not necessarily the turn signals, if I'm not mistaken on the INTs, but mine is non-LED all the way around. So you've got that extra brightness there. There is that single exhaust that I referenced. And it's a 19-inch wheel up front and a 17 in the back, also to give you that little bit of extra capability off-road if you want it. And really a sharp-looking bike. This one I believe is called Wild Honey, this color scheme, and it really is an attractive bike. Let's talk about some of the other colors that are available. I always love that Royal Enfield offers a pretty wide variety of color schemes. So this is the Boardwalk White, a sharp look with a blue seat, orange, a royal blue, and a light blue stripe there on the tank. I have seen this bike with the accessory brown Royal Enfield seat, which also looks great on that bike. Make it a little bit different looking. I tried to capture here the glitter and sparkle that you get in the white on the tank, but I couldn't really capture it. But it does have a real cool pearlescent sparkle to it. So here are the 5 colors that are available for 2025. The Boardwalk White that I referenced. There's the Wild Honey that I'm actually testing today. Petrol Green. Golden Shadow. I really like that one. That kind of looks triumphy to me. And then the 249. In comparison, the INT650s are $6,149 for 2026, so about $700 to $1,000 less expensive. Let's talk about the off-road potential. I believe that will be pretty limited for most riders. The MRF rubber would handle dirt roads and the occasional trail quite well. I believe it would be overwhelmed with sand or mud. The bike does have switchable ABS, which is great. You would want to invest in a skid plate if you're going to do any off-roading, however, to protect the radiator hose and oil filter. Bear is terrific in city riding, just like the INT is. The 6-speed transmission is really smooth. The clutch pull is light and easy. And actually with the Bear, you have an even more commanding seating position than on the INT. You really sit up straight and get a great view of the road and what's going on around you. And the seat is very comfortable, and I think if you were concerned about the height of it with that extra inch, you really can kind of slide to one side or the other at stoplights if you need to, so that I don't think that would be a problem for most people. Stock seat to stock seat, the Bear has a much more comfortable seat than the INT. And then regarding the torque, I wish I could tell you that I could feel the difference, but I do not feel those extra 3 or 4 or 5 newton meters of torque. So the Bear might be even better than the INT is on the highway. The upright seating position is great for longer rides. The MRF tires, though a little bit more aggressive than the INT's tires, don't make any extra noise on the road, at least that I could tell. And the grip seems to be quite good. I didn't get to test it on any wet surfaces. Thankfully, it didn't rain on me. Well, I go back to my previous comment that this might be the ideal next generation touring bike, where you've got that 10% capability to ride to special places on trail or dirt roads that you might not be able to get to on a traditional adventure bike or on a regular street motorcycle. This bike could be terrific for that, and that's what I'm going to try to address next. I want to learn more about that and then check out the luggage options and some other things that would make it comfortable as a touring bike. And in the meantime, please check in on the channel Retro Modern Moto, and thank you again to the Go Moto folks for letting me borrow the new Bear 650. It's been a blast to ride.